G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. 25th of February 2025, 25/2/25. So it's how big a bang can you buy for a buck, and how much rubble to the ruble? The missiles, my friends, they're pointed to the skies, and answers will follow close behind. And it's how big a bang can you buy for a buck, and how much rubble to the ruble? The missiles, my friends, they're pointed to the skies, and answers will follow close behind. So it's how many feet will we live underground, and stay there for how many years? The missiles, my friends, they're pointed to the skies, and answers will follow close behind. How big a bang can you buy for a buck, and how much rubble for the ruble? The missiles, my friends, are pointed to the skies, and answers will follow close behind. And it's how many feet will your grandchildren have, and how many fingers and toes? The missiles, my friends, are pointed to the skies, and answers will follow close behind. Get used to some radiation on your cornflakes for breakfast. Not that radiation ever hurt anyone. I've only had 7 lethal doses go through my head. But the people who did it knew what they were doing. They who are about to nuke you, they're going to use Rolf Harris's fucking broad brush on you buggers. Anyway, welcome to the Trumpocalypse Chronicles, installment number 9. Once more, we go out to play on the tarmac arena under a clear blue sky. So even if you don't like what I've got to say, at least the scenery will change in the frame. Hey. Okay. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Real time. Check, 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 check. Off down the hill in economy mode. So, I'm sure those of you who have not been living under a rock with their radio, TV and mobile devices all switched off, you will have noticed that the autarky of MAGA Muskistan has revealed itself, as was long suspected to be going to occur, revealed itself to be a fully paid up, true believing, absolutely loyally obedient satellite client state of the Kremlin. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin's foreign policy is POTUS 45/47's foreign policy. And all the incompetent, half-witted, corrupt, nepotistic, politically reliable half-wits who've been employed by the Trump administration, ticked off on by Congress, no complaints by the Republican Party. They're all about to do what they were put in power to do. And that is to remove the United States of America from ever being a threat to the Russian culture ever again, because that's pretty much where Vladimir Vladimirovich has got things pegged in his head. Various people have said various things about who, when, where and why the diseducation of the American population commenced, but it's generally put around about the time of Ronald Reagan. Until the time of Ronald Reagan, the entire US culture, civilization, seemed to think that educating your kids was a good idea, because if you educated them, then they'd understand the world, and when they were presented with a decision, they could make an intelligent choice. But there are people, like, for example, the Romanov Tsars of Russia, who felt that it was a bad idea to allow your serfs, the human livestock who were transferred with a bill of sale when a noble person purchased land from another noble person, or perhaps lost a hand of poker and had to hand over the title deed to their ancestral holdings. The serfs went with the deal. They were part of the livestock. And it was illegal to teach them to read, because if the serfs could read, they might get all sorts of silly ideas about egalitarianism and life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And the idea that all people are born naked and equal in the sight of the God theory. And other sorts of things that people who earn more than $100,000 find difficulty accepting, because they've been raised to believe that God helps those who help themselves, and that's why rich bastards have more money, because God wants them to be rich. And superficially, in the short term, you can see where they get off on thinking like that. If everybody's been taken what they need from the town commons, and then one bastard comes along and takes all of it, in the short term they get to appear to be rich. Some people will kowtow to them and suck up to them. Others will rightfully have the shits with them. But in the long run, the more selfish a person is, the more miserable their ending finishes up becoming. If they manage to run on a mixture of selfishness and selflessness, in that they know they're being an arsehole, but they're trying to do it for a good cause, they see themselves as sacrificing for the good of the community, or perhaps their family, or one of their kids, or whatever. On the grand cosmic scoreboard, that does seem to count. Selfishness for the sake of pure personal self-aggrandisement gets you a much bigger kick up the arse faster than selfishness purely for the sake of getting rich. And the more damaged an individual is by being raised by fucking idiots who don't know how to provide a baby with what the baby is hardwired to expect from its surroundings at birth. If you've been raised by idiots, you've got a whole lot of free hits on your cosmic scoreboard account. When you emerge from the pipeline of adolescence, it's not actually necessarily totally wholly your fault when you fuck things up, because you've been taught to fuck things up. You're going to have to make your own mistakes and realise what doesn't work. The difficulty is we've got Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, who grew up in Leningrad after World War II, after the siege. So he's grown up surrounded by combat veterans, living in the ruins amid starvation and want, negligence and abuse, fighting with rats in the cellars as a child. He is an abused individual. Little short ass because he's been starved as a kid, stunted, looking up at the rest of the world feeling resentful, fairly intelligent, but paranoid. Raised to be paranoid, raised to be a control freak, raised to be a megalomaniac. And at some point, DonOld has encountered Melania when she was more or less illegally in the US, been sent over from the collapsing Soviet Union as part of a deep sleeper honeypot program of agents sent over there to just sit around and hook yourself, the idiot son of a rich capitalist. And then when he runs out of money, get him to come to the Kremlin for funding. And once we've got our claws into him and he can't possibly bear the odium of us revealing how deeply he's betrayed his country, then you can get him to do whatever you bloody want him to. Well, shit a bug a bitch bum cunt fuck poo, that worked when Donald Trump was elected in 2016. And he got a taste for power. He didn't expect to be elected. He got a taste for power. And somebody had been wising him up from the very, very start. At the start of his first presidency, he was talking about he had this thing called an Article 2, which meant he could do whatever he wanted to do. And it's his interpretation of the second clause of the US Constitution, nothing to do with the Second Amendment, although that might solve a lot of problems. The second clause of the Constitution, which runs up the backbone of the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society's theories concerning the Unitarian President's theory, authority, whatever it is. They've got the idea that if you elect a president, that's it. The president has absolute immunity from prosecution, has absolute power to declare what the law is. And that's the kind of one of the biggest bits of news this week is that they've put a bill in front of Congress, which is probably going to be signed by the Congress, because everybody in the Republican side of Congress is terrified that if they don't do what they're told right now, because they're told, exactly as they're told, then Elon Musk is a turd, he's a big fat lying bloody turd, will show up with money and fund a primary campaign against them, and they're going to lose their job. So basically, they're being threatened in order to ensure their compliance with whatever one of Donny's pet trained seals puts in front of them. But the idea that Trumpy is a king, I've been saying that he's assuming kingly powers ever since SCOTUS's decision to allow him to have absolute immunity. His own bloody press office put out a couple of AI images, one with him wearing a crown on his head, the other one with him wearing the British royal robe, you know, dressed up as the fucking Empress of India. He's flying the kite, he's preparing people to get ready for the idea that it's going to become a reality. Right at the moment, Elon Musk, or Felon Musk, bracket capital F, close bracket capital E-L-E, small L-O-N, Felon Musk, he appears to be running US domestic affairs as an enforcer, more or less as the Royal Regent, Lord Felon. I think what's happened is he's effectively bought a half share in Vladimir's Prissyduncial puppet. And the absolutely stunning fucking news from the week, which goes a long way to buttressing my hypothesis that the next thing that's on the agenda on the right-wing side of US politics is going to be a live-action replay of the Night of the Long Knives. If you look that one up, you'll find that a bloke called Ernst Röhm, who used to run the Sturmabteilung, or the brown shirts, was notorious as a secret homosexual who liked little boys. And Joseph Goebbels and Hermann Goering didn't like the idea of Ernst Röhm pushing himself up the ladder as a big power in the Nazi Party, National Socialist Deutsche Arbeitsparty. So I think it was 1935, they got together one night, might have been 34. Once the Nazis were in power, all the communists had had their heads bashed in. They really didn't need these fucking idiots who show up wearing red hats at rallies anymore, because they had their grip on power consolidated. So Hitler got in his car and went for a drive in the middle of the night, and they showed up at Ernst Röhm's place, kicked his door in and caught him in bed with a teenage boy, took him down to the basement, and as they shot him, the fucking idiot put his hand up in an Elon Musk salute and said, "Heil Hitler." and then any of the chain of command of the Sturm Abteilung who didn't agree had their throats cut, hence Night of the Long Knives, and all the foot soldiers went into the Wehrmacht or maybe concentration camps, labour camps, put to work on the Autobahn projects. So that's what I think is next on the agenda on the right-wing side of politics. And I see Elon Musk and his musketeers and probably Pig Hogsbreath, or Pete Hegsworth if you want to give him his actual name, they're going to be playing the role of Hermann Goering, because he was the head of the Prussian state police, and Heinrich Himmler, who was the head of the Shuft-Staffel, the SS. And it was the state police and the SS who backed up Hitler on the Night of the Long Knives. So prepare ye for the way of Elon laughing the demise of the brown shirts, and MAGA gets to be the brown shirts. Meanwhile, over on the other side of the politics, Trump's first day in office, he had a negative 1% approval rating. He's now got a negative 6% approval rating. All of his factotums, toadies, obedient sycophants, and absolutely loyally unthinking supporters, disciples, acolytes, everybody he's put in a position of power and authority over the American people has an even lower approval rating than Trump does. There are mass protests and marches all over the place. Elon Musk's status as the richest man on earth is pegged to how much money Tesla stock is valued at on the stock market, and it's crashing because its sales are crashing worldwide. And he doesn't actually have money of his own. What he does is he borrows against the value of the Tesla stock, and right at the moment Wall Street is desperately trying to sell the debt that people hold because it belongs to Elon, and everybody in Wall Street can see that his corporate value is tanking. But pretty soon Elon's going to find himself in a great deal of difficulties. His other difficulty is that he's a fucking ketamine junkie and he's off his head. He doesn't know whether the hole in his bum was punched or bored or cut through with a cold chisel, and he couldn't actually tell you what those three methods of penetration and perforation involved. There's a video clip of him prancing down the stairs of an aeroplane, and his little 4-year-old human shield is trying to struggle down the steps behind him. And when the kid's halfway down the steps, Elon gets to the bottom of the bloody stairs and he just walks off. Completely forgot that he's got a 4-year-old in tow. As you will have no doubt paid attention to in the previous 8 of these instalments, I mentioned that the decapitation of the US government, bureaucracy, administration and all agencies that work for the people was going to be high on the agenda. I didn't really dream that they would dare to fire the FBI, the judiciary, the CIA, and basically every agency which keeps tabs on corporate corruption, before they then went into the Social Security and the Medicare and the Medicaid and the pensions and the healthcare. This is the most comprehensive destruction of a single nation that I've ever heard of anywhere in history. It's as if 249 years of exporting chaos and violence and weapons and bloody-minded arseholery, which has been conducted by maybe 5 to 25% of the US population who knew what they were doing, while 75% have honestly believed in Pax Americana and all the glorious things that America has stood for, and which they were accomplishing sufficient of that everybody on the planet was more or less inclined to give the buggers the benefit of the doubt, see if they finally figured it out before they fucked up totally and had to like sign a stalemate in Korea, run away from Saigon, bugger up Iraq twice. Run away from bloody Afghanistan, putting up absolute duplicate clone solid state video copies of the VHS tapes from the fucking fall of Saigon. But throughout all that, it has been more or less apparent that most of the people in America, being a bit of a churchy mob as they are, pride themselves on their piety and their sanctimony and their self-righteousness, they were actually sort of trying to do the right thing. But this fucking prosperity gospel's got them by the gonads. They're now putting shit on a Episcopalian, a high church bishop for daring to preach Christianity to Trump in a church. Because Christianity isn't like that anymore. Christianity is much more muscular, they say. So apparently the British Prime Minister has pledged British boots on the ground in Ukraine as peacekeepers to try and stay between the Ukrainians and Vladimir's fucking orcs, I think that's what they call them, ORCS, orcs. Well, he certainly gave me some clearance, didn't he? 82% of the battery remaining. This hadn't been ridden for 6 days, so we were down to 96% by the time we even got to the New England highway. Whenever the battery's plugged into the bike, its circuits are operating, sucking on the battery to run its Bluetooth circuit to talk to the motorbike or something. Very, very high-tech and complicated. So anyway, there is no nation known as the USA anymore. One of the absolute high points of the last week, Elon Musk's dodgy Doge department, named after a fake Bitcoin, they fired 75 people of the team who works for the Department of Energy because the muskrats were too bloody wet behind the ears to know what the Department of Energy is the cover story for. The people who literally manufacture and assemble and maintain and store and clean and, you know, like pull them apart when they're over and rebuild them. Every nuclear warhead and every atomic reactor, propulsive reactor for every nuclear submarine and aircraft carrier. Those ball buggers got the sack the next day when the bloody dickheads from Doge realised what they'd done. That was when they decided to, we better contact them and ask them to come back. They'd already fucking wiped their details from the computer. POTUS 4547's foreign policy is all formulated and dictated in Moscow. Prick didn't even look at me. And Elon has been permitted by Putin to buy a 50% share in the Prissyduncial puppet to see how badly he can fuck the USA. And it's all absolutely, totally revenge for the fall of the Berlin Wall. Oh look, it's mentioned day at the House of Follies. Probably illegal to film the poor buggers, but anyway. They're the people who fucked up, and this is the day when the courthouse actually functions as a courthouse. Most of the time what we have is law enforcement with no justice. I think that was my son and heir getting into that. No, different one. Yeah, once upon a time we used to have a clerk of the court, and we used to have a chamber magistrate, and we used to have a second assistant secretary, and they were there all the time. And you could show up there and tell them your troubles, and they wouldn't give you legal advice, but they'd tell you which forms you needed and give you the forms and send you off after telling you to go and consult a private solicitor. But the clerk of the court got sick and took some sick leave, and they used that as an excuse to shut the whole friggin' place down. Now we've only actually got anybody at the courthouse when there's a magistrate sitting on the bench. And they have razor wire and gates around the cop shop. I wonder how long before they man the battlements on top of the courthouse. So, we are approaching the end of this little ride, where the bike is about to get its new $1,250 front forks that don't leak. And the old leaky forks will be sent away to someone who knows how to pull them to pieces. And after they're pulled to pieces, they can be fixed and sent back, and I'll hang them on my wall, and I'll have a spare set of forks if ever this shit happens again. But yeah, don't forget that France has decided they want to send 2,000 troops to Greenland to defend it against any American invasion. And Australia has King Charles's head on our currency, so does Canada. If America wants to annex Canada, Australia and New Zealand will be there. And Queen Mary of Denmark is a Tasmanian legal secretary who hooked herself a prince who was being groomed for the kingship. So Tasmania is probably going to send a militia battalion to go to serve under Denmark's command, also to defend Greenland. This should be really fucking funny, eh? Hilarious. If it wasn't real, everybody would be laughing. Trouble is, it is fucking real, and nobody thinks it's a joke. Hello, you're on YouTube. $3,600 clicks, 24 minutes, 40 kilometres an hour average speed, 50 kilometres an hour maximum speed, and yeah, such was the ride to town. Here endeth Trumpocalypse Chronicles number 9. Ciao.